Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Legends of Philly. I'm Jason Lee on PHL 17 Plus. This show, I'm having such a good time doing this show. Conversations with the biggest names in Philly, and this guy that's my guest in this show, one of my absolute favorite people to talk to. He's so much fun. You know him well because, well, he was a player for the Phillies for a lot of years. He's been a broadcaster for the Phillies now for a lot of years. He is the great L.A. If you can go by only two letters, you know you've made it in life. L.A. Larry Andersen, L.A. How are you, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing well, thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing great. There's so much to talk to you about because we could talk about your career as a player. We could talk about the broadcasting. We could talk about the fun that you've had in both facets of your career. But I want to start from when you first came to Philly. So it was the '83 season, right? You came from Seattle.
Yeah.
And you kind of found yourself all of a sudden in a pennant race with a lot of big names. How nerve-wracking, exciting, maybe a little bit of both. What was your mindset when you first came to Philly?
Honestly, walking in the clubhouse and seeing what I saw, my first thought was, "What the hell am I doing here?" uh, I left Seattle, my hometown,
Yeah.
which was a real thrill growing up and playing ball there. Um, but after I guess leaving some of the household names in Seattle, like Bruce Bochy and Dave Edler and Paul Serena and guys like that, Paul Cern, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, Dan Ferovid, those kind of names, which I'm sure people have all heard of. And then walking in the clubhouse in Philly, having my locker right next to Tug McGraw, seeing the name tags of Steve Carlton, Mike Schmidt, Joe Morgan, Pete Rose, Tony Perez. Those are just the Hall of Famers, along with some great players, Gary Maddox, Gary Matthews. Just I just walked in. I'm like, why am I here?
Well,
It was eye opening.
yeah. Well, it was eye-opening, and again, you find yourself in the postseason. That was kind of a strange year because, right, the Phillies fired Pat Corrales when the team was in first place. Paul Owens takes over, but you end up pitching in the postseason for the first time. What was that like? Talk about butterflies, talk about nerves. What was that like pitching in the postseason for the very first time?
No, there's nothing like it. One of the things that one of my best recollections is not so much pitching in the games, but my daughter Angela was born. She was 13 days old, and she was my wife brought her out from Seattle. Came out, or she was in Philly. They came down to Baltimore, and we're walking through the lobby, and we're carrying one of those, I don't know, basket type things with Angela in it.
Yeah.
And we're walking by, and we see Pete Rose and Carol sitting at the table, and Pete calls me over. So my wife and I and my daughter come over there, and we sit down and have dinner with them. And so
That's cool.
I was telling the story to Tug and saying, like, my daughter got to have her first dinner date was with Pete Rose, and here she is in the World Series at 13 days old. And Tug was like, 13 days old. It took me 13 years to get the World Series.
That's
It was really a treat. But you think of those names like Mike Schmidt, Steve Carlton, Pete Rose, playing with those guys. It just, I don't know. There's not words, because these guys are guys that I idolized even when I was playing, when I first signed, and it was just I don't know. It was just surreal.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And then let's fast forward 10 years because you were the only guy, I guess, right, to play for both the '83 National League champs and the '93. I know. I guess Dutch came up late in the season at '83, but he wasn't on the postseason roster, right? So you were the only guy.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That was a thrill. I mean, just to, especially more after the fact, looking back in retrospect, of the fact that I got to play on two of the World Series teams, two of the losing teams, but
Right.
nevertheless, two World Series teams, and that's always been for me a highlight of my career.
Now, that '93 team, I know Harry Kalas always said that was his favorite team, his favorite Phillies team of all time. So many personalities on that team with Dykstra and Incaviglia and Eisenreich and all those guys. What was that like?
Um, Animal House.
Oh, and Kruk. How can I forget Kruk?
A crook, yeah. It was personalities galore. Some very intense, like a Dave Hollins, who oftentimes went by Mikey, or uh, t- everybody. I mean, it was just it's really hard to
Right.
sum up that team because there were so many different personalities and strong personalities, but it was a team that played together. I mean, that played well off the field,
Right.
but played even better on the field. And that red light came on and it started the game, and when those players crossed that first baseline or third baseline going out on the field, they played the game the right way, and they
Yeah.
really. For me, as a broadcaster now, they spoiled me, and it's because they played the game right. And it's now I compare that team to other teams when I watch, in Philly, and I want I, I unfairly try to compare that '93 team to the Phillies teams I broadcast for, and it's kind of unfair, I think, because I've never been around a team in the 25 years that I played, minor leagues and big leagues. I've never been around a team that played the game right and that policed themselves and did what they had to do each and every single day.
Yeah, really. And that team was in first place from wire to wire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're right. They played it the right way. It was all these different personalities who all meshed well together. And there were so many moments that year. I mean, the doubleheader that ended at 4:41 in the morning. I talked to Chris Wheeler for one of these episodes a while back, and I asked him about
Right.
broadcasting that game. What was it like as a player when, okay, game one doesn't end till after 1 o'clock in the morning? And then you hear, wait a second, we're doing a game two? And as it gets later into the night and into the next morning, I guess, you're getting tired, you're getting hungry. How'd you guys get through all that?
Um, a lot of coffee.
Right.
I remember Whitey saying to Harry, or Harry saying to Whitey, one or the other, that it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm already out of the game. I pitched in the second game, and I'm in the video room with David West, who was my best friend on that club,
Right.
and we were just sitting there watching the game. It was like, and here in the crowd, it got louder after 2 o'clock when the bars closed and
Yeah.
the gates were open, and there were more people came in, after 2 o'clock than were there before 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they were
it,
they
it
were
was,
letting people in for free at one point.
yeah, yeah, and it was so crazy. Um, I remember, but it was Harry. I think Harry said to Whitey, he says, "Well, or Whitey said to Harry, said at 3 o'clock in the morning, he said, well, it's the shank of the evening for you, Harry." It's like, and for us, it probably was too as the players. I think that's where it gave us an advantage because we were used to being up at two
Right.
o'clock and 2:30. So
That's I you know I
I think we had an,
I didn't think about it from that perspective, but that makes a lot of sense. All right, listen, I got it. We got to take our first break of the show, but when we come
yeah.
back, I want to talk about a viral moment in your career that I actually didn't know you were involved in until just recently, and of course, want to touch on your broadcasting as well. That and much more with Larry Andersen coming up on Legends of Philly. Stay here. And welcome back to Legends of Philly here on PHL 17 Plus. I'm Jason Lee. Conversations with the biggest names in Philly, and my guest today certainly fits that description. He is the great Larry Andersen, LA. Before the break, I touched on this viral moment that I honestly didn't know you were a part of until maybe like a month or so ago. So it's Seattle Mariners, and I forget who Seattle was playing, but it's a ground ball down the third baseline, and the third baseman gets on the turf and blows the ball foul. You were the pitcher. I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
tell me about that. And because, like I said, I'm watching that, and I hear the announcer say, "And here's the stretch by Anderson." I'm like, wait a second, that's L.A. So tell me about that. What do you remember about that?
We were playing Kansas City Royals.
Okay.
Amos Otis was the hitter,
Amos Otis.
and
Okay.
yeah, I mean, they had a heck of a lineup.
Yeah.
George Brett was in the middle of it, so it was pretty good. But Amos Otis, he could fly, but he comes up and I threw a pitch, and he is a swing and bunt, and just kind of dribbled down the third baseline. Lenny Randall was our third baseman,
Right.
and he was a character. He was he was a little eccentric, maybe, I guess you could say.
Right.
But he comes in and it, he knows it's not going to roll foul. It's right down the line. It was kind of bending that way, but it was really slowing up. And so here comes Lenny, jumps down on all fours and just starts blowing the ball foul. I'm like, okay, I'll take it, a foul ball, because we're not going to throw out Amos Otis at that point.
Did
So it
he
was
did he
like
really
probably
think the did he really think the umps would let that go?
I don't, I doubt it, but I think, Lenny was all for the moment and doing what he could to make the moment special, and he certainly did it with that play.
That's true.
Again, he was a character, and I never really realized it. I hear so many people that I don't know why they've seen it more in the last couple of years. They seem to have highlights of it or replays of it. And people are like, "That was you? I just saw that commercial. That was you," and blah blah blah. I'm like, "Yeah, that was me."
I just stumbled
Um,
across it on YouTube about a month or so ago, and I had seen that highlight so many times in my life, but I never realized that you were the guy throwing the pitch.
yeah, yeah, it was another big highlight of my career.
And you mentioned that Seattle was your hometown, and of course, it's a thrill for anybody to play for their hometown team. But you end up settling in Philly. So tell me how a guy from the Pacific Northwest decides to stay in Philly for the rest of his life. What was it about this town that made you want to stay here?
Um, it sounds so cliche to say, because so many people have said it, but I've said it my whole life
Hmm.
since I got to Philly, that there's nothing like playing in Philly. Coming from San Diego, um, previously, with the Phillies, then moved on to Houston and Boston for a month, and then San Diego. And hearing all the stereotypes of about playing in Southern California and how people have tended to be a little, I don't know, hate to say the word, but kind of plastic, not
Okay.
not real. Um, and I heard that, but then after playing there for a couple of years, I'm like, yeah, that's a little bit true. A lot of people were concerned about how much you made, what kind of car you drove, what kind of clothes you wore.
Right.
Um, and so it was almost like, and I can't think of the word, but it just not real. The people didn't seem sincere all the time. And that was one thing from playing in Philly the first time I loved. So when I had a chance to go back, I jumped at it. And then
Right.
coming back, it was like, I'm back to where people are real, where people, if you're a jerk, people are going to let you know.
Yeah.
And I've always been in the belief that if you're nice to one person, 100 people are going to find out.
Yeah.
If you're a jerk to one person, 1,000 people are going to find out.
True.
And Philly is a place where you don't want to be a jerk. You don't want to be known as a jerk.
That's
Um,
well put.
yeah, and so I did. Just the fans, just the way the city was, and the passion for, when you go to a city and their week is determined on what the Phillies do over the weekend or what the Eagles do or the Sixers or Fly, it that's it's almost like it's a big part of their life,
Yep.
and the passion that they have for the game, it just it made me want to be around the fans there. And so to actually, was out in the suburbs. I moved back into the city in the around 2005, into South Philly, and I just loved being in the city, being around the fans, and I still to this day do.
Yeah, well, you are a Philly guy through and through. There's no doubt about that. I want to move to your broadcasting because the way you got into this, they say it's really hard to follow a legend, and I can't think of too many legends much bigger than Richie Ashburn. The Phillies hire you after Whitey passes away. Those are huge shoes to fill. How tough was that for you coming in to try to, I don't want to say fill his shoes. You can't fill Whitey's shoes, but to take his former position, let's say.
I think, knowing where I was going, the direction I was going, and who I was going to follow. The one thing I wanted to make sure was that when people said stuff, or people would say, "Well, Larry Anderson's replacing Richie Ashburn in the booth," I wanted to. I made it a point to say I'm not replacing Whitey,
Right.
because you can't. Nobody can.
Right.
And so I think coming out of the shoot and saying that right off the bat, I think helped somewhat. to let people know I'm not here to take his job, not, in that sense, or replace him, because he was a legend. And I just wanted to do him justice more than anything. But I wanted people to know that I'm not going to try and do Whitey's job. I'm just going to do the job that I was hired to do, and do it the best I could. And kind of just went from there.
So tell me about your relationship with Harry Callis. I know you were friends even before you got into the booth, but then you're kind of taking over for his partner. But I know he was looking forward to working with you. How did he influence you in terms of your broadcasting career?
I think, well, it was tough at first. I remember, Dan Stevenson was our Fanavision guy, did all the videos and commercials and stuff like that. And he was a close friend to this day. But he was very honest with me. In his first couple of years, he's like, "Dude, you got to relax. You're like a deer in headlights there." And I said, "You understand? I'm sitting next to Harry Callis."
Yeah.
I said, "The guy who was announcing games when I was pitching." And I said, "Everybody loves Harry. Everybody loves to listen to Harry." And I said, "I got in the booth, and that's all I wanted to do was just sit there and listen to Harry." And people say, you got to speak, you got to talk, you got to do this, you got to do that." And I'm like, "You don't understand. I'm sitting next to Harry Callis. I just want to listen to him like you people do." And that was a tough part. But Harry, he just really continued to impress upon me. Like, he called me Breakdown, and I have no idea where that came from. But
Okay.
he would call me LA Breakdown. And he said, "Breakdown, just be yourself. Just be what you want to be. Be who you are.
Right.
Don't try and do anything. Don't try and talk like a broadcaster. Be a broadcaster. Just be yourself. Talk about the game." And I think a big part of it is just being friends with him. But he could say little things like that just stuck. That made you think that, you know what? Let me relax. Let me just be myself and say what I have to say. And it was such a great mentor, and just obviously a thrill to work with. And the humor of Harry was something I don't think people really know or understand about how funny he was. Very subtle, but very funny.
Yeah, you know what? I only met the man a couple of times. I didn't know him nearly as well as you did, but I felt like I did, and that's the effect that all of you guys have on us. I mean, you don't have to know Larry Anderson to know Larry Anderson, because we feel like we know you. I want to stop right there because we have to take another break,
Yeah.
but I want to talk about your
I,
connection with your current partner, Scott Fransky. You know, I call you guys Harry and Whitey 2.0. We'll explore
yeah.
that after the break on Legends of Philly. Stay with us. And welcome back to Legends of Philly on PHL 17 Plus. This is already one of my favorite episodes because I'm talking to one of my favorite people, Larry Andersen, the great LA Phillies broadcaster, former Phillies pitcher. And LA, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for doing this again. You and Scott Fransky, and you and I have talked about this many times. I call you guys Harry and Whitey 2.0 because the feeling I get listening to the two of you, it's like two guys in a bar who just happen to be talking baseball and who happen to be talking on the radio. You can't fake that kind of chemistry. How did that happen?
I think a lot of it was just, we hit it off. The Phillies said that they wanted him to try and bring out my personality more. They told me that they wanted me to work with Scott because just my personality, and they thought that we would, help each other come out a little bit. And it just we had a friendship right from the start. I got to know his wife. We hit it off. We just everything about it. It was like one of those people you meet that you're kind of taken to, gravitate to, or
Yeah.
and I think we kind of felt that way about each other. We ended up being friends, before we were actually regular broadcast partners. I mean, he was doing some pregame stuff, and we weren't. I didn't feel like we were working together all that much at the very get go, the very first year. But we just got closer off the field, and I think that translated when we went on the air. It's like we felt like we were two guys sitting there, having a social sparkler and watching a game, and we basically kind of just broadcast like that. And he always said, we're in the entertainment business, and this is something he's really stressed a lot. Um, over our career that we're to entertain the fans, no matter what the game's doing, no matter how it's going. We've got to entertain the fans, and if the game's close, the game takes care of itself.
Right.
You just talk about what's going on in the game, and if it's not, then we can go into our little shtick and try and entertain people, and that's kind of how it did. But as far as our friendship, it just there's there's nothing you can really put your thumb on and say, well, this is what did it, or that's what did it. It was just we just hit it off the field, and so when we go on the air, we had that friendship already kind of in place.
Well, that entertainment aspect you're talking about, that's why I tie you guys back to Harry and Whitey, because that's exactly what they did, because they saw a lot of bad Phillies baseball. You and Scott you've seen some great Phillies
Yes.
baseball, but you've seen some bad Phillies baseball too. And the thing about it is, no matter how bad the Phillies might look, you guys always make them sound great. When you hear the comparison between you guys and Harry and Whitey, how does that make you feel?
Oh, there's no better compliment, no bigger compliment that people could say that you guys remind me of Harry and Whitey. Um, that's because I know I was, even though I was playing, I was still listening to them. I would hear broadcasts or hear replays of it, or watch a replay of the game. We've got all these old VHS games on tape that obviously I can't hear anymore, or can't see anymore because nobody has a VHS player.
I got a VCR,
But,
Larry. You can come to my house. I
do
still have
ya?
it. Yes.
Oh,
You,
sweet.
you and the wife are invited to my house, and we'll pop in the tape.
Nice, nice. We might have to do that,
There you
Jason.
go. Hey,
Uh,
we'll order pizza on me.
yeah, nice. But it was just hearing that and people say that, and obviously we've heard people say it. I shouldn't say obviously, but they have. But it's just there's no greater honor
Yeah.
when the whatever that line is. The greatest compliment is, I don't know. You know how it goes. You know what I'm talking about.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery?
That's the one.
Is that the one?
Thank you.
Okay.
That's the one.
By the way, LA,
Uh,
I think I still have an 8-track tape player laying around somewhere too. So if you have any old Village People cassettes, bring them over too, okay? I want to. We only have a few minutes, and I want to make sure I get a
Yeah.
couple things in. You have a line of shirts and hats. In fact, I remember to bring my Just LA shirt.
Oh, nice.
See, there you go.
Very nice.
Oh, hold on. Get a full shot of it. Yep. So, and my daughter has the Just LA beanie, and I was looking
Right.
for that, but that is in her dorm at college right now. So she took that. She has that at school. But every time I talk to you, every time we do one of these things, I want to make sure I give you a chance to talk about that because it benefits a wonderful cause. So talk about that if you would.
It's a line that I came up with in the, I don't know, late '70s, and then I tried to sell T-shirts and hats, Just LA stuff, when I was with Houston, and it kind of fizzled out, and it just got to be more work than anything. So I still had the line, but I didn't do anything with it for almost 40 years, and then I started working with this through our church, through Christ Church South Philly. They had a program called Transformation to Recovery, and they have it's the Hope House. They have a 10-bed house for recovering people recovering from addiction for men. And actually, we just kind of in the process of we just purchased a house for women that we're hoping to get up and running here in the next couple months.
That's wonderful.
But it's all the I basically gave the line and the logo Just LA to Transformation Recovery, and just so I have no say in it anymore. It's their control. But we sell the merchandise, and I don't know if you can see the T-shirt.
Oh, there you
Just
go.
LA.
Yeah, I
Or
like that one.
like that. But we have a line that if you go to transformationrecovery.org, there's links there. You can click to it and get to Just LA apparel. And so, every single penny that we make that we sell the merchandise goes to Transformation Recovery to help those in recovery. And it's basically the theme is bringing the light of the gospel to the darkness of addiction. And it's just been a blessing to me. It's been just something that the Lord has blessed me with, and give me a chance to meet up with these people who I think a lot of times people say, well, they had a chance, they had a choice, they didn't have to do this. Well, yeah, we all have choices. Some make bad choices. I know I have. Um, I didn't get any addicted to anything or anything like that, or alcoholism, um, but some people do, and trying to get their way out of it, it just, to me, is just a feeling that I can't get anywhere else. That you can help people, that you can maybe mentor people, or just spend time with them, listen to them, help them out. And with the Just LA stuff, the money goes to that. I just think it's a great cause, and I appreciate it.
No, it's a wonderful cause, and I always love it when people who have a platform like you do use the platform for good things. And you talk about a blessing. LA, you have been a blessing to Philly. You've been a blessing to the entire Delaware Valley. You know what? This is one of those episodes where I know we could do a part two, so we got to do this again. But I have to wrap this up now. But in wrapping, I just wanted to say. I appreciate you doing this, LA. I appreciate your friendship. You're a wonderful guy, and all I could say is go Phils, right?
Sounds good to me, and I seriously appreciate our time, our friendship. We've talked a lot, and I thoroughly enjoy being with you and spending time and talking the game or whatever it is.
And I'm going to dust off the VCR. I'm going to plug it in, and
There you go.
I'm going to give you a call. And I'll invite you to my house in Bucks County, and we'll have dinner and watch some old VHS tapes. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, LA.
Sounds good, Jason.
Thank you so much, LA. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you. I appreciate you.
And everybody, thanks for watching Legends of Philly on PHL17.com. We'll see you next time.